Jason Gilbo, Gilbo11. Taking a look at tonight's 15-game slate here as far as pitching goes on both FanDuel and DraftKings. You do have some enticing options up top. Obviously, we need to talk about some cheap guys because I'm sure stacking options are around guys like the Red Sox, the Coors game, obviously Baltimore, all those other teams with the high totals. You're going to want to be taking a look at and be wanting to get some guys like Goldschmidt, Arenado into your lineups. There's obviously Max Scherzer in a great spot. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But jumping right into things, you're looking at the Rays and Orioles here. In Camden Yards, 9.5 over/under. You have Matt Moore and Giovanni Gallardo. Obviously, looking at Baltimore as kind of a team to stack tonight, so Moore is definitely off the table. You look at him; he's really struggled on the road. Really doesn't keep the ball in the yard as well and struggles against right-handed bats. Gallardo, on the other hand, there's a lot of power in this Tampa team. He's not really a guy that's on my radar tonight, even really at a price tag that's fairly generous on DraftKings. There is 6,700. Sure, the Rays bats don't do particularly well against right-handed pitching, but that upside is always there. Gallardo come off a pretty strong start in his return. Did get the win, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. I think that's all you're going to get from him at that point. So not really a guy that I think you can target. I'm looking at kind of other guys in the range with a little bit higher upside. Next one here, you have the Twins and Yankees. Tommy Milone versus Masahiro Tanaka. Tanaka is probably going to be a popular play tonight, just looking at his price tag, 8,800 on DraftKings. It's pretty intriguing. Coming off a really strong start against the Twins on the road, 8 innings, 1 earned, 5 strikeouts, 20 K points. FanDuel, he's a little bit more expensive. You're looking at 9,500. Still a legitimate option as far as a spin down from guys like David Price, Steven Matz, and Max Scherzer, of course. So he is cash playable to kind of get into that extra groove. Hasn't really shown a ton of strikeout upside this season. But you look at the Twins, I mean, really, that offense really isn't that good. 22.3% strikeout rate. They rank 22nd in WOBA against righties. You look at the Yankees, big-time favorites, minus 195 there. Tommy Milone on the other side should give the Yankees plenty of run support, and they're not really in play as well. Dodgers and Pirates here. This one's an interesting situation because you do have Talion there making his fourth start in the majors, 8.5 over/under. Pittsburgh just minus 126 favorites. You look at the Dodgers bats, and for one, I mean, they haven't been particularly great this season. They're in 23rd in WOBA against right-handed pitching, 21% strikeout rate. Talion coming off a tougher start against the Cubs, kind of as expected. Did throw a really solid game in his second start. I think those nerves kind of got away from him. 5 strikeouts in back-to-back starts. I'm not really looking at him as far as a FanDuel guy tonight. Single bullet, I'm not quite sure that upside's really there. DraftKings, maybe a little bit different story. 7,500 is the SP2. It does give you a little bit of kind of a salary relief there in that back end. But outside that, it's kind of a large slate. He kind of disappears for me. And Tesh on the other side is not really in play either. Indians and Tigers, you have Danny Salazar and Jordan Zimmerman, and this one in Detroit, over/under of 8, Cleveland minus 107 favorites. Danny Salazar has been absolutely electric this season. He is priced up there. Given he's just 900 less than Scherzer, I think obviously you look at Salazar, I mean, he's certainly in play. He has shut down some really good offenses this season. It's not the most ideal situation as far as the matchup goes, but he's definitely in play. But because Scherzer is right there as far as price tag goes on DraftKings, I think you easily kind of spin up to him for just 900 more. FanDuel, it's a little bit different. 10K, it's a $1,900 difference. And you look at this Tigers team, I mean, they are heavily right-handed. You look at Salazar, I mean, 12% swinging strike rate, a strikeout rate near 30%. Overall, I think it's just a GPP play for me only. I'm not really looking at Salazar in cash. I think there's better guys to kind of spin down to as far as other options. But Salazar definitely playable tonight. Jordan Zimmerman, not so much. You look at this Indians team, 9th in WOBA against right-handed pitching, kind of just an average strikeout rate. Zimmerman is a guy, you know, at the price tag that really isn't on my radar. Yes, he's cheap on DraftKings. And, you know, he's pitching a pretty decent game against Kansas City, but before that, hasn't really been that strong. He's been very mediocre. So I think it's kind of another stay-away situation. 7-10, you got Padres and Reds. Colin Rea versus Reed here. 9.5 over/under. Cincinnati minus 121 favorites. There's a lot of Padre right-handed bats that hit lefties well this season. You obviously look at them. I mean, after the stretch they've kind of been on last month, they faced a lot of right-handed or left-handed pitching, and now they're up to 6th in WOBA in the league this year. They still carry a really heavy strikeout rate of 24%. And you look at Reed. I mean, he does have that in his arsenal as far as the strikeout rate goes. We saw it in the minors. We saw in that first start against Houston. So for me, he is certainly in play. Cody Reed is a decent arm. We saw him notch 20 DK points in 7 innings, allowing 4 earned, the 9 strikeouts. I mean, that potential is there tonight. And I do think he's a viable GPP option. You look at him, I mean, also a small favorite. The ballpark is definitely a concern. You look at some of these guys like Kemp, it's definitely a situation that is a little bit iffy. There is definitely a little bit of downside there just because guys like Norris, Myers, as I mentioned, Kemp, Solarte, they've all hit lefties pretty well this year, and the ballpark factors don't really help. There is upside. There also is a relatively low floor, so do be aware of that. But the price considered is definitely a GPP option that you can definitely really stack around with some big-name bats. Padres side of things, you got Rhea. Not really looking at him on tonight's slate. He's pitched well at times, but he really struggled on the road. And I do see him kind of struggling against this Reds offense tonight. Comes Marlins, you got Kyle Hendricks, Tom Kohler, 7.5 over-under, Chicago minus 149 favorites. You look at this Marlins offense, and they've been an average of late. Guys like Stanton starting to come around, starting to show a little bit more upside. Hendricks has been great this season. 54% ground ball rate, 23% strikeout rate, not allowing a ton of hard ball contact, which is nice. And you look at this Marlins team, 12th in WOBA. Yes, they're, around the middle of the league. They don't strike out a ton, 19%. Hendricks is a guy who at the price tag, I think he's at one where I'd rather kind of spin down to maybe get some similar production. I don't hate him tonight. I do think there is some reasonable upside there, 9,500. Wish the price tag was a little bit lower. As far as FanDuel, 8,800, it's not that bad because you do have some guys in some spots around him that are definitely worth a look. But I do think he's in play tonight. As far as Kohler on the other side, not really looking at him, depending on the part that, you look at Rizzo, he might be out of the lineup. It just kind of depends on what situation goes. But Kohler on a 15-game slate, not really playable. Mets and Braves here. Steven Matz versus Aaron Blair. Over under 8. Mets minus 180 favorites here. Mets, I'm a little bit concerned about just because of the arm issue. Going to be watched cautiously. And that's going to be something that I'm a little bit scared of. Had some tightness in the elbow. I think that's a situation that could happen where, maybe he doesn't particularly go that deep into a game. And at that price tag, you definitely need him to do that. He has pitched well against the Braves this season. You're looking at 3 starts, 2-0, 4 runs allowed, 23 strikeouts over 20 innings. So that definitely upside is there tonight. But the elbow is an issue on a full game slate. I mean, he could definitely leave your lineups dry if you use him. You look at the Braves. I mean, obviously 260 WOBA against lefties, dead last. You look at them. I mean, a 22.6% strikeout rate. Excuse me. Is definitely intriguing of a matchup of it as always. You look at a lot of the right-handed bats are, average, mediocre at best, and you look at a lot of those lefties in the line. So it's definitely overall a matchup that can be in his favor. But I just think, the guys around that price tag, I do think the elbow is an issue. That's the only thing that's kind of keeping me back here. And Aaron Blair on the other side, I know the Mets offense has been banged up, but he's not really in play at all. Red Sox and Rangers, David Price versus Nick Martinez, 9.5 over-under, Boston, big favorites, minus 172. You look at this Rangers team against lefties, very middle of the road. I know they rank 7th, but they're still not that great against lefties. Just a 105 WRC plus, a 20% strikeout rate. So Price is an option. I mean, tonight I think he's more of a GPP play for me at the price tag, but certainly playable. I mean, look at what he's done really of late. I mean, that big strikeout upside has been there this season. You like what you see from him in that department. 12.8% swinging strike rate, 27% strikeout rate there. So you look at him, I mean, he has pitched better than the ERA has indicated, especially of late. You also do concern about the heat and just the overall ballpark factors in general. That's why he's kind of borderline cash and more so GPP. And Martinez, I know the Boston offense has kind of slipped a little bit, but they're definitely a stacking option tonight against him. Blue Jays and White Sox over under 9 here. Toronto minus 141 favorites. Aaron Sanchez versus Carlos Rodon. I like Sanchez a little bit more here on FanDuel. I'm not quite a fan of the price tag on DraftKings. 9,100 there on FanDuel. It's a decent single bullet GPP shot. Borderline cash play as well. 11-4 on DraftKings, so it's a little bit steep. But you look at him, I mean, he's been consistently solid. Had that struggle, home against Baltimore, but bounced back with a nice inning. A nice outing out of him. Strikeout rate has been pretty solid this year, and he's missing some bats. So I think Sanchez is definitely an option because you look at this White Sox team. They're not good against right-handed pitching, 21% strikeout rate, 24th in WOBA. And overall, Sanchez has missed those bats. I mean, 23.4% strikeout rate. He's pitching right along the lines with his FIP and Sierra. So I think this is what you can get from him from here on out. And the price tag is what's going to differ for me for making him very playable or very not playable. And I think FanDuel, he's kind of certainly that option there. So Rodon on the other side, too many right-handed bats to scare me off of him in that ballpark. Obviously, Rodon showed some upside this season, but not really a guy worth looking at. Next one here, you got the Nationals and Brewers, and Scherzer's obviously going to be the big talking point tonight, just because you're looking at this Brewers team and a monster strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, 26%, middle of the league in WOBA. Yes, they do have some power guys. Obviously, Miller Park is friendly for hitters. Scherzer's been really prone to the long ball this season, obviously with a 34% ground ball rate, 1.60 home runs per 9, which is his career high. Still not allowing a ton of hard ball rate, though. 15% swing strike rate, 32% K percentage. So you're looking at Scherzer as an easy top option tonight, and definitely the number one on the board going up against a Milwaukee team that just strikes out a ton. 8+ strikeouts is definitely doable for him tonight. Definitely a strong favorite. Not the highest on the board, but definitely one who should get that way if you can get some runs to kind of back him up. Not really a ton of risk. I mean, obviously, guys like Braun, Lucroy, if he does leave one hanging up, I mean, we've seen it before. Scherzer's given up some homers this season, but easy call for him tonight is the number one option. And Davies on the other side, not really in play for me, even though the Nationals offense really hasn't been that strong. 8:15, you have the Astros and Royals, Dallas Keuchel versus Edinson Volquez, Houston minus 120 favorites, over-under of 8. Keuchel, not really a play for me tonight. Yes, he's still cheap because it really hasn't been that great this season. He's slowly, pitched a couple of solid outings, but really hasn't got through nothing clean. The strikeout rates have kind of bounced back. I mean, 6-9, 8-6 over the last 4 starts, but still 2, 4, 4, and 3 earned runs. Hasn't really been picking up wins. You can't really see him possibly getting a win here in this one. He is a small favorite, but you look at the Royals offense, still some right-handed bats that I'm looking at there against him. So price considered, I don't think he's really a viable option tonight. You just look at the Royals against lefties, 11th in the league. They don't strike out a ton, so it's definitely a stay-away situation. Volquez on the other side, he's a guy who's somewhat intriguing. Just because, the price tag really isn't that bad at 8,200. You look at him, I mean, he's pitched a lot better at home, 2.61 ERA compared to a 6.82 on the road. You look at this matchup against Houston, certainly plausible for him to get some strikeouts. He's not a big strikeout guy, but you just look at this free swinging team. I mean, Astros 24.5% strikeout rate. He's playable. Not really a cash game guy, but I think GPP-wise, he's certainly an option, especially if you want to get some bats in. Diamondbacks, Rockies, you already know the case here. Anderson and Bradley, over under 11. You stay away on both sides. Next one here, you got the A's and Angels. Eric Surkamp versus Jared Weaver, over under 9 out here in the West Coast. This is definitely a stay away situation. The A's don't strike out a ton. They got some pop like Davis and Valencia in that bats. So Surkamp obviously not really a play. He's been bad this season. Just another kind of stay away situation for me. Cardinals Mariners, Carlos Martinez is really pitched well. Wade LeBlanc on the other side. Over under of 8. St. Louis just minus 115 favorites. Martinez's price tag is intriguing on DraftKings at 10K as far as a tournament option. He's been solid on the road this season, 1.78 ERA. Obviously, the Mariners offense still does pop some legitimate threat there, and they don't strike out a ton. He's a deep tournament play because he has been pitching well. And you look at Martinez, I mean, people are really going to be off of him. And you're also looking, I mean, he's dominated some pretty solid offenses. over the past. I mean, you look at the upside that he can bring, it's definitely there. It's just a matter of him going out and doing it. So I think overall, it's definitely the GPP play. LeBlanc on the other side, not really an option. Phillies and Giants here. Jake Peavy has pitched well of late, and I think because of tonight's slate and because of the options as far as hitters go, he might be a decent option. I think SP2 wise, borderline cash play on DK, single bullet GPP entry on FanDuel, even borderline cash if you just want to pay up at all the positions as far as hitters go. I mean, you know, you look at his last 4 starts, been very solid, even 5. I mean, the only game he did struggle was 4 earned against St. Louis on the road there, which, you know, a top offense will do that to you. But 23 DK points against Tampa, 20 against the Dodgers, 25 against Atlanta, 16 against San Diego. He's a big-time favorite. You're looking at this Phillies offense, and they're not good against right-handed pitching, 29th in WOBA, 22% strikeout rate. At the price tag, I don't think you can really go wrong with him. I mean, obviously, things can go wrong. But I think overall you're looking at him as kind of a really decent option as far as getting those bats in. And he's very playable. Eflin on the other side should provide run support. Giants are monster favorites at 202. So I do think he's going to be a reliable guy. I think he's going to be a guy many of you and myself will build stacks around tonight. Let's go wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for all great tools and content.